There, I'm off mute. Honestly, it's been one of those days. Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name's Rachel, and I'm going to be inviting Roseanne on right now, actually. So she's looking very professional in her glasses. Hello.
Oh, hello. How are you, Rachel? You okay?
I'm all right. How you doing?
Yeah, good. Not bad at all.
Great. So Roseanne and I, the last time we talked, like officially, publicly, we talked all about periods, didn't we? And so when I had to do kind of plan something that was called Honest Conversations, I obviously thought of you because I know that you are up for talking about anything. So
I'm flattered.
Yeah. So we'll see how it goes. Now, Roseanne will agree with me. We are not experts, but we are very opinionated, maybe. We're very enthusiastic. And I think we're very honest and just kind of say it like it is with Home Ed, because it's got amazing parts and it's got really hard parts as well. And I think it's good to have all of that out in the open. So how are you feeling, Roseanne?
Yeah, I'm good. I've literally come off from one Zoom onto another. So yeah, I'm ready.
I know, you're so good. I've just been sat here for 15 minutes because I'm paranoid about the internet just staring at the
I know,
screen.
I left it like 2 minutes before and I was like, quick, type it in, but we're good.
Yeah.
We're here. We're ready.
We're so good. So before we get to the questions, and also if anyone has any questions, Emma is moderating, and so throw them at her. She can either answer them or I'll see them and answer them. But definitely put any comments, questions, criticisms, anything like that in the comments so that we can all discuss together. But before we get to the questions, Roseanne, do you want to just quickly introduce yourself, kind of who you Home Ed, and then I'll do the same as well.
Yeah, sure. I'm Roseanne. I home ed my two kids who are almost 6 and 7.5. I've home educated them from the beginning. They've never been to school. And so, yeah, we're like 3 years down the line now. And yeah, I love talking all things home ed, sharing our journey through social media. And obviously, you and I spoke before on Twinkl Lives and some other sort of podcasts online. So, yeah, I'm really excited to chat about this tonight.
Yep. So I've also home educated from the start. Roseanne was recently on a podcast that I've been listening to, actually. So it reminded me of kind of how you started out as well, and that your kids had never been to school.
Yeah.
So if you do want to check out that podcast, maybe we can link it in, because that's talking all things home ed and kind of the whys and whats of kind of starting out as well. But so yes, I've home educated from the beginning as well. I've got 3 kids. 8-year-old, 6-year-old, and a 4-year-old. So it's been, I don't know, like 4 or 5 years. You kind of lose count, don't you? Like I keep forgetting what year group they should be in or all that kind of thing, because it just becomes just very normal and everything's rolled into one thing or the other. So I always forget kind of how long we've been doing it.
It just flows, doesn't it? Someone asked me the other day, actually, what years mine would be in. I was like, don't know. They're only one school year apart. I was like, 2 and 3, 1 and 2. I actually still don't know. I think it's 2 and 3, but yeah.
Yeah, I've got some neighbours that I knew would start at school when my daughter should have started school. So I could
perfect.
like, oh, what are you in? Because I forget.
Amazing.
And then my oldest is about to be in the year group that I spent most of my time teaching. That feels really strange, because it just feels like a very different experience. So I'm really hyper aware of what year he's in, but then the others I'm just,
yeah. Of course. Yeah, it just flows, doesn't it? Which I think is a good thing anyway.
It is, yeah.
Comparing it to years anyway.
Exactly. So we're going to get into the questions. Oh, hang on. I kind of grouped them together because there was some that were the same. But if we don't answer a question and someone has put it in, then we will either answer it another time or we'll try and catch it in the comments. So one of the first questions was, how do you know if you're doing enough? And then I had some other questions of like, what if you feel like you're never doing enough? And to me, that all speaks about kind of guilt and worry and anxiety over it all. So Roseanne, how do you know if you're doing enough?
Do you know what? I question myself on this on probably at least once a week. I think we
Yeah.
all do. And from
Yeah.
chatting to other parents, it's completely normal to get these worries and to have these feelings, especially if something triggers us that day, or there's been a moment that's just thrown us out of our original plan and thrown us out of sync. I then tend to take myself back to like the beginning and think, right, why am I doing this?
Yes.
Especially if it's like a huge like wobble of home ed overall, then I have to take myself back and be like, right, this is why I'm doing it. I have to sometimes think, like most of the time, if it's not enough, mine's like a daily basis, not as a whole. So I think about that day and I'm like, right, this is what we have actually accomplished today. This is like what we've achieved, and I have to think about the small wins for each day. And then I sometimes like let my mind compare to what they would have achieved if they were in a school, actual mainstream school setting. And I think, well, with 30 other kids, what individually would they have achieved that day other than their attendance in that setting? So I think it's totally normal to question whether we're doing enough, but I think appreciating and focusing on the small wins and the small achievements gets you through each day. Definitely.
Yeah, definitely. I found that at the beginning, I was asking that of myself very, very often. And then it started to space out that I kind of have those wobbles, maybe like once every 6 weeks instead of once every 6 hours, like it felt in the beginning. But I think you're right. I was thinking about kind of the purpose. And for one of the videos I did for Twinkl, I had to write down kind of our home ed like mission statement. And I can't remember it word for word, but some of the things that like I remember about like community and compassion and so on, like that's like the why we do it and the things that they're growing in that they wouldn't have had a chance to grow in if they're in school. But like I said, I'm having like major, not wobbles, I don't know if it's the right word, because I know what my son, like I know in detail what he'd be expected, what teachers would think with his different things that he does, because like I used to be that teacher.
Of course.
So then I ended up just chatting to my husband and just kind of vomiting out all the worries. And because he's not involved in the like day-to-day, like minute-to-minute stuff, he can see the bigger picture and kind of say, well, if he was in school though, this is probably some of the issues that he'd be facing, and kind of seeing it as more of a holistic thing, seeing their like emotional growth. But I think everyone feels that.
I was literally going to mirror what your husband said, actually. I always knew I liked your husband, Rachel. Yeah. I think like we have to stop thinking about the academic achievement and think about the emotional and social achievements that our children are building as a whole, like exactly that word, holistically, because that's one of the reasons why most of us, the majority of us, are choosing this path anyway, because we're taking our child as a whole into consideration and not just their academic achievements. So
and I think if our kids were in school, we'd be having just like the opposite worries.
Of course.
Maybe wouldn't be thinking about, oh no, do they know all the phonics? But we're going to get stressed out about other things, like have we got enough time to connect? Have they got enough time outside? And so I think it might just be a parent thing as well.
Yeah, of course. There's definitely two sides to that, 100%.
Yeah, a few people in the comments saying that they feel the same. And then I've really had to change my mind on what is enough to get past the guilt. Definitely a mindset switch. Yes, definitely agree with that.
Yeah,
because
definitely.
You can have the exact same day and one day feel terrible about it and the next day think like that was perfect. And sometimes it's just...
Of course. And I think like it depends on the season as well. I suppose if more people, it's been such a long winter, everybody's sort of been inside and there's only so much we can achieve being inside, and we need to be in that outside environment again. Then I myself anyway tend to have smaller worries surrounding the academic achievements, and I'm focusing more on being outside and our health and new topics, and just get a new sense of freedom again as soon as spring's actually sprung, which we're still waiting for. But I definitely think a long winter, being inside, everybody's getting these wobbles and feeling the frustration and almost feeling a bit like they're in this one place and we need to venture out again. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, someone has just mentioned, which made me think of another question. So I have 5 boys, and it takes so long to do one-to-one stuff like maths that there's not much time for all the fancy add-ons. And I think that is one place where you can get guilty comparing what other people are doing. So like the virtual adventures from Twinkl, my family has never managed to do one because we just haven't had the time. And so there's things that you see everyone else doing them. What does kind of your typical day look like in terms of like, these are the essentials? Like, do you do a lot of fancy add-ons?
Again, it really depends. It is really seasonal learning, and it depends what's going on that week. Some weeks there'll be like one-off classes, or I might have booked a 6-week block of classes on a specific day. So we're filling our days with groups as opposed to sitting up at the table. But it just depends on what we fancy. Sometimes, I mean, obviously we're doing a book study at the minute. I'm using your book study for our read aloud, which is Heartwood Hotel. And sometimes I'll really focus on that. And I think, right, I need to do a chapter a day so that we don't lose like focus on it. And we'll, again, like you said, the Twinkl, we're doing like the World Explorers. So we'll really get into that. Then the kids might sort of like not be as interested one day, so I'll stop. We might be in a real roll with a reading program we're doing at the minute, and they're really on a roll, so I at least try and do half an hour, 45 minutes at least with them each, while the other does like a cosmic kids yoga. And I try and make sure we're at least doing some maths and English, but topic based really fluctuates between what we're doing outside of academic achievements. They've got lots of sports groups going on at the minute, and now the weather's picking up and summer outdoors, I'm happy to leave the work. We tend to do it in the morning over breakfast, get it done, and then get out for the day, and then sit back up. But yeah, you're right about comparing to what other people are doing. So many times, I've said this so many times, comparison is just the thief of joy. It just snatches away anything positive you're feeling. And even though, you know, I post things on social media what we're up to, but I'll look at other accounts and think, oh yeah, that's good, I didn't really do any science this week, and then I'll feel mum guilt or home ed mum guilt that I haven't accomplished enough in that sense. But we have to stop comparing to other people, because not only are we different as educators and parents, but our kids are also different. And it's not just my kids and your kids. I mean, even both my kids, I have to make sure I'm doing enough for each of them. And sometimes they're just not going to enjoy the same things, and they're just not going to take it in. So yeah, a comparison, no, don't. It will take away any joy that you find.
It will do, and you really do have to like train your brain not to go there. Or sometimes I'll just like, well, I'm gonna unfollow those people on Instagram, even though I love them and they're doing great stuff, but it's not good for my mental health. Or I'm just not going to ask people also how much writing do you do with your kids at home, because what they answer isn't going to make any difference to how much my kids want to do.
No, you're just going to cause yourself unnecessary stress, unnecessary worry, put more pressure on yourself, and then you're not going to enjoy it if you're just copying somebody else's ideas.
Exactly.
Great to get inspired by, you know, some topics or places to visit, but if you're copying, it won't work for you, so it's pointless even thinking it in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to switch topics to quite a different one, which is dads. Where are they?
Love this one when it popped up earlier.
So this is kind of a topic that was thrown at us, so I guess we can take it anyway. So obviously not every family has dads in the family, so just putting that out there. And so it's going to look different for every family. But in terms of like men in home ed, I guess, and if you're married to a man, how much they're involved in it as well. So how about you? What's the kind of balance of home ed in your house?
There isn't much balance. It is pretty much I take on the role of full-time home educator. My husband works full-time. I do work part-time as well, but that I have separate childcare with my parents for that. But yeah, we don't really share the roles. It's one thing we sort of always agreed on. It works. I'm a complete control freak. I have absolutely no shame in saying that. So the thought of him planning a topic or even suggesting an idea would throw my mind completely out, and it would cause a huge argument. So I'm just going to be honest. There's no point even offering to help me with this, because the answer's no. I mean, obviously he comes back and the kids will read a story to him, or I'll send him videos or pictures of where we've been or what we're up to, and he's super proud. But his role is definitely to financially provide in order for us to have this lifestyle anyway, and we're both happy with that. We've got businesses that need running, and it is a full-time job. So as much as he might do the Sunday football, or help me out in the evenings when he gets home if I've really had a day of it. It's not shared when it comes to the home ed roles. And then I just lock him in the cupboard to do all the ironing and sit and drink a bottle of wine. So that works well as well.
That sounds good. For us, I also am a control freak, but because of the way that my work has worked with Twinkl, I've had to, because I was just getting so stressed out and trying to do everything all at once. He has now taken time. He has his own business, so he could be flexible, which is I know we're very fortunate with that. So he has taken time off on the Monday daytime and added in extra evening time for him to cover that. And so I have this big chunk of time on the Monday. And at first he had woodwork classes to take, things to take them to. And now that they've ended, I find it really hard not to here, can I hand you exactly what, with a literal checklist on the top. And I knew that wouldn't work. So I'd lay books on the table, oh, maybe they'll read this. That didn't work. No. So it's kind of just his stuff. If he wants to do stuff with them, then he would rather put the time in and effort into figure that out for himself. Or it's writing a graphic novel with my oldest, and they'll do he's much more techie, so they'll do that kind of thing more naturally with him. So it has become a little little less of me and more of him, just practically speaking. But I find it really hard. And because I'm hey, I've done all the research about this. So I know the ins and outs of why I'm using this particular book, or why I'm asking this particular question, or why I'm not intervening when they're doing this maths thing. Yeah. And he has a very different approach. And so I have to be hold back. So, and I think that experience tends to I think most families seem to be like that, where it's usually, if it's a husband and wife, the wife is the one, it's fairly traditional, I guess, that they're doing the home edding. But I do see a few dads around in the home ed groups, and I think
I'd say about a third of our groups, there's a dad there most of the time, and the roles are really shared evenly, and it's so nice. Anytime I've had conversations to people where the dads are more involved, it's lovely to hear how it works and how they share the roles, and they take on this, and especially if the dads or the husbands have had a career in something completely different before, and now they've changed, your husband, and given up this time, and they've come to this compromise, and the dads just fit into it, even though they're a plumber by trade, and I just think, wow, you've really taken to that, and you've just taken it all in, and you're just going with the flow, and it's really lovely to see as well. I really like it when I see that role shared a bit more equally.
Well, I think, and sometimes you have to look outside of even our own little family, because there's so many people that can be involved in teaching our kids. There's the kind of community centre that we're involved in. They have a community garden, and there's an older man who does gardening there. My son will go and help him out, and they'll chat, and he'll tell him all about plants and so on. And it's nice when there are other people involved, whether or not it's someone related to you, or. So I think just having other people on your team is helpful.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, my nan does a lot. We see her a few times a week, and I mean, bless her, she's 84 now, but she really gets involved with the kids, and especially if I'm doing an exploring nature of children topic in line with the Twinkl. And she'll get involved with that, and it might be about birds, and I don't even need to look in the book, because she'll just know what birds that bird song's from, and she's really cool with it. I think it's nice to have a different a variety of ages as well, influencing the education that you're providing for your kids. It's really important.
Absolutely. And someone else sounds like they're having a similar experience with me. It started to share this, I was burning out. That was exactly what I was having. I think we're both happier, but she'll be phases and seasons. And that's a nice thing about home ed.
Exactly. Nothing has to be permanent. Yeah, definitely.
And someone is saying, so Jenny is saying that she's with us on the control. I think that might be a home ed.
There's no point lying about it. You're a control freak. What can you do about it?
Exactly.
I take quite a lot of pride in that. I am a control freak.
Well, and I think the fact that we're home editing and we're no school, we will have control of that.
No one's determining anything but us.
Yeah. So I think there's probably a lot of us, definitely.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So this one is more on tips and tricks. So a few different questions came in about reluctant learners. So like kids who just really don't want to get involved, or who they want to achieve a certain like qualification, but they really don't want to get engaged in their learning and so on. And like I said before, we're not experts, but I'm sure you've kind of got a few tips or thoughts that you'd like to share. If I know I remember listening to the podcast, and I know that with reading, you've had like, you might have something to share with that. But reluctant learners, any tips or thoughts?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I did speak about this with Amy on the podcast. So my daughter's the complete opposite. She's so keen to learn. She wants to do well. She wants to try everything, even if it takes her a while. She won't give up. My son, on the other hand, yeah, he is the exact like description of a reluctant learner. He so there's only 1 year between them, and yeah, he's just had no interest at all in picking a pencil up, learning phonics, learning anything about basically anything he doesn't want to do. He likes being outside. He likes working with his hands. He doesn't want to sit up at the table for anything, apart from a read aloud, because yeah, he can just draw at the same time. So anyway, I was pushing him, not pushing, but I was really trying, and he just was showing no interest. He wasn't enjoying it. And I thought the last thing I want to do is take away enjoyment, especially out of reading, for my child, because this is one of the reasons why he's not at school. Why am I doing this? So, and it's pressure. Sometimes, you know, you do buckle under the pressure. Oh, is he 5? Oh, he can't write his name yet. Oh, he doesn't know what this says. And I never had that with my daughter, because she was always so keen to learn. So anyway, I left it, and I thought when he's ready, he will tell me and he'll just do it. And it was, again, being a control freak, it was hard for me to do that, but I have left it. I'd say since the summer, I've left it. Maybe he's done a bit of reading eggs app, or, you know, a tiny bit of colouring, not within the lines. But other than that, he hasn't done anything. And then it was only about 6 weeks ago, and we were out, and he just read a sign, and I was like, oh, that's strange. Like, some, you know, maybe his sister told him what it said. And then again, we were out again, and he was just reading sentences, not words, not phonics, just reading full on sentences. And yeah, basically he has taught himself to read. So I started him on the reading revival program, which is what I use for my daughter. And it took her like a week to get through book 1, which was like 6 words on repetition. And he's reading a book a day now. And he's just got this photographic memory. Haven't had to do any phonics. I've not done any phonics, like all those phonics phase mats that I was doing with her for months. Not done a single one. They haven't come out of the box, and yet he's I would say in about 3 weeks, 4 weeks, he'll be on the same level as my daughter. And I've been working so hard with her over the last year, and he's just there by himself. And it's for me to accept that that's actually happened. Yeah, it's like, okay, like this is a thing now, this whole child-led, and they'll do it when they're ready. Yeah, I've always sort of hoped that that was true, but I've never thought it possible, but it really is. So I think the main key with like reluctant learners is to not push them, let them go at their own pace, and let them adapt to what's going to come to them. And it will come. It definitely will come.
Yeah, because that's what similarly with reading. And I know, like, I imagine it's harder when your kids are older and you're feeling maybe more pressure for like certain qualifications and so on, or if it's been a long period of time where, you know, you don't feel like you're seeing like your trust, I guess, rewarded. But for me with reading, it was similar, that when I just took breaks, and then suddenly he was like developmentally ready like 2 months later, and I didn't have to teach the things that I was planning on teaching. And it does make me laugh when I think about how much effort I put in planning as a teacher. And I mean, you worked in education, so you know how much you put in. And then I'm thinking, like, how much of that was necessary? Like, how much we were just doing because a list told us to do it, a list made by somebody else, but actually they already knew it, or they would know it naturally themselves. So
it's crazy. I think when it comes to the older ones and people questioning like with exams and, you know, different topics, again, like I think back to when I was at school and doing my A-levels, and I was so reluctant to do those because I had zero interest in that. And I knew I wanted to go off and do and get a trade and actually work and get an apprenticeship. And once I did that, I've not been a reluctant learner ever since, because I've been learning my passions and what, you know, what I enjoy. So sometimes maybe we need to question, obviously my kids are not at that age, but if they're reluctant on something academic, maybe that something is not for them, and they don't need to pursue that in their career or as an adult, because sometimes we just don't do it.
Yeah, that's exactly, I was about to say, like, what do we define as success? And especially if you've been in the school system, then our idea of success is very narrow. And then I think maybe COVID, I don't know, there's a lot of things changing in the world around. You see like how fast technology changes, and you realize it's more about kind of the skills, and it's about like mental health, and those are the things that, in a sense, like if my kid never learns how to do a simultaneous equation, I don't care, like I think it'll be totally fine. But if they don't know how to handle their emotions, or if they just like aren't used to meeting lots of different people, like that's the things where I'm like, oh, actually, that when I really think about it, that's the success that I want. So I think it is about taking big breaks and trusting, which is really, really hard, I think. And but then, yeah, like you say, thinking about actually what are we putting the idea of what a learning looks like and what learning should lead to on them, when actually it might be a very, very different path.
Yeah, definitely. Who's going to state what success is for each person? You know, it's clear that we're all different, and we can't. Yeah, it's not as black and white as that, is it?
Yeah, we've got, well, we'll probably have about 5 more minutes or so, and we've got a few questions. I'm just looking through to see which one. So I think we'll go with this one. So a couple of questions about this. Overwhelm, and one particularly was like, I've got a baby, my kid's school age, you know, like it's just like, when do you ever get time to fill your own cup? Or if you're working from home, and like we mentioned earlier, burnout, just how do you personally fill your cup? And yeah, share your thoughts.
I think it's about being realistic, and setting realistic self-care goals, if you like. So obviously we've all been there. It's super hard when you've got a baby and you're trying to home ed, or you know that you're snowed under with your personal work or your housework. We've definitely all been there, and I get weeks where sometimes that gets on top of me more than others. But I have to be realistic and think, okay, this week's super busy. I'm completely snowed under at home with the kids at work. I don't have the luxury of having a day to myself. So I need to ensure I'm going to get 10 minutes to myself later.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, whether that's leaving something that doesn't need doing right now and having a bath, or going for a walk, or thinking, okay, everything's done that needs doing, the kids are fine, I'm going to go and see some friends, or I'm going to make time to read that book. But other times I might get longer. I mean, Sunday I had the morning to myself, which was so unusual.
Yeah.
And I went out by myself and it was glorious. But there's weeks where we're not going to have that luxury of childcare, and we just have to be realistic about what we can do that day. I mean, sometimes filling my own cup might be taking 2 minutes in the bathroom to have a quick cry of frustration. I'm going to, you know, we're being honest, aren't we? So I don't have the luxury of having a bath every night. It will be a 2-minute cry in the toilet to relieve the stress I'm feeling.
Yeah.
You know, give myself a talking to, and then get back on, because we have to do these things. And I think it does depend on what's going on. And if our emotions are high, if I'm always stressed, I always know that specific time of the month, I'm like, my whole house needs cleaning. I need an empty washing basket. I need to clean my windows, and I need to do things that really actually don't need doing. And who cares anyway about those?
Yeah.
And I have to bring myself back down to reality and just focus on what have the kids, you know, if have the kids been happy? Are the kids healthy? Is my mind emotionally strong? Yes, nothing else matters. And it's taking whatever time we can get each day to do something that makes us happy and makes us smile and just brings us a little bit of clarity. Whatever we can do that day.
Yeah, and I don't think that's like defeatist, because I know some people like saying like you've had a shower every day and you've had your breakfast, like that shouldn't be self-care. That should just be everyone has it. But actually it's a privilege to be able to have that time. And in a system, like we're working within systems that are set up that, you know, we don't have the village as we used to have. We have a lot of different pressures on us. We can't switch off, especially if we're kind of working from home, or if our normal free time is actually going to do paid work. And like we're working within these systems, and they're probably messed up systems, but we still have to function and go. So I think you're right about the expectations, because I definitely like was a time where, well, for me to be able to function, I'm sure I must be, you know, people say like have a day to yourself, or go out for a 20-minute walk by yourself every day. And like, actually that's not physically possible.
It's a real luxury to have that option. And that is why sometimes a 2-minute cry to yourself is the only luxury you'll get that day. And if it diffuses that situation or the feelings that you've got, then if that's what it takes, then do it. Mine's even just a cup of tea. Like a hot cup of tea will fix my problems most days.
Oh, and Emma, she's one of them who's moderating, is like, is this where chocolate comes in? Yes.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
And I think it is that
square of dairy milk just before we
yeah.
came on, not gonna lie.
And for me, like, even though this sounds pessimistic, sometimes I just have to choose what like you said, what I'm not going to do. So this week we've got the conference, it's overwhelming. Like, as in, like, lots of times where I need the kids to be quiet and I've got to be like on it. And then my husband has like the timing's terrible, has been like away for a few days doing different things. It's got a big work project. And I'm like, my kitchen is not going to be clean, and we're not going to have like homemade meals. It's going to be like, get the stuff that's easy to eat, kind of just do the bare minimum so that it's not terrible in the kitchen. And I'm like, we've deliberately chosen not to do that. And even though I'll have the same amount of cleanup as the weeks where I'm overwhelmed, the fact that I deliberately chose to leave that aside, like, feels better for me. I think maybe it's down to the control freak thing, but
yeah, we're taking pride in admitting defeat, aren't we? You know, we're like, yes, this is how it's going to be, and I'm proud about that this week.
Yeah, because it's just realistic, and I think it'd be lovely to be like, yes, we can, you know, well, every Tuesday I'll have a spa night on my own, and every Friday, and it just, we've never, as a family, never been able to stick to, okay, this time every week is your time to just go off, because like a kid will be clingy, someone will be sick, another work thing will come up, or it's
not natural to have that thought either. You know, it's not like an organic flow, is it? If you're having to preempt what you're going to do and how you're going to deal with the stress, we don't. You know, let's be honest, most of us don't have the luxury of time. So we just have to do what we can in that day and just accept the small wins. And if we've gone to bed and the dishwasher's on, result.
I am the dishwasher in my house. Yeah. I'd love a dishwasher. It's like my dream.
I've only recently had one. So 10 years of 6 people in the house, and I only got one a couple of years ago. But
does it make the difference?
I abuse that. Yeah, tonight I put a pan in, which I know is not going to be clean in the morning, but I've put it in anyway. Because there was no way.
I do feel like a dishwasher will completely change my life, and everything, not just the dishes, like it'll just have this knock-on effect.
Yeah, it does.
So, one day I'll have a kitchen where I can fit one in.
Dishwasher will fix that. Put that in there.
So just gonna end with this, because this is like full circle because of what we originally talked about in our very first live. So I think it's important to accept every day can be different moods, the weather, time of the month, lack of sleep. Some days need to be slower than others. And then OMG, tea. We've got a lot of tea fans.
Yes.
Chocolate.
But how many we would have had if I'd have said wine. Next time we'll try that.
Yeah. But I think that, like, knowing ourselves as well, knowing the things that we can let control of, knowing what the time of the month and when like our cycle's going to actually, there's no point trying to get everything done in that time. I think kind of learning more about ourselves probably helps us in this as well, because we can maybe preempt the moments of overwhelm.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Right. So we've been here for about half an hour or so, and hopefully people got something out of that. Definitely head over to Roseanne on, she's Home Ed Hopes. Is it Hopes or Hope?
Hopes. Yeah, Home Ed Hopes.
On Instagram, and I know she's very, very willing to answer any questions and kind of show what home ed looks like. And similarly for me as well. So we're definitely happy to answer more questions. Do you have any parting words of wisdom or encouragement that you want to pass on?
Oh, you've caught me off guard there. No. Encouragement. Don't compare your life, your home ed journey to anyone else's. Childhood is not a race. There's no race to the finish line with any of this. And education comes in so many forms. And I think we all need to remember that sometimes as well, because it's not just what we're doing up at the table. It's everything. It's the whole being of us and of our children. And we're all going to get to that finish line with the same goals and the same achievements. So yeah, it's not a race. It's my biggest.
Perfect. Well, that was great for being like off the cuff.
Was it? Oh, great. Maybe I'm better with off the cuff.
So we're going to say goodbye to you all, and thank you so much for watching us. Bye, everybody.
See you later.